Hello, it's Mr. Stringer again. Now, in today's lesson, we are going to be planning and drafting our informal letter. Just like before, you can pause, replay, and rewatch this as many times as you need to. And I'll be asking you to pause the video to complete small tasks before pressing play again. Now, before we get going, let's see if we can recap the features of an informal letter. Pause the video right now and think about what are the features. Okay, you've had some time to think about it. The features of an informal letter we should be using today. We know to write in first person. We know we're going to be writing in perfect present tense. We will include an address and a date. There'll be an informal greeting. We'll also have an introductory paragraph, just a short few lines to introduce ourselves. We will have main paragraphs. There should be a concluding paragraph. And finally, we will sign off and include a signature or our name. So, this is my rough plan. I think in my letter, I want to write to a neighbour, a friend or a family member, someone I know. I'm also going to tell them something positive because I want to make them feel happy. I'm also going to let them know that I miss them. I'll make sure that I include that in my letter. I'm going to make sure that I use an informal tone because this is an informal letter. And finally, I'm going to make sure I use the correct letter format that we looked at yesterday. So that's my rough plan of the 5 things that I'm going to include in my writing today. So, on a fresh new page, in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to ask you to write your address, leave a line, and then write today's date. Now, the reason we're writing your address is because this tells the reader who to respond to. Okay, pause the video while you write that down, and then unpause it when you're ready to carry on. Okay, you should have had some time to write your address, leave a line, and then the date. Here's my example. I'm writing from Thomas Arnold Primary School, and the date is Tuesday, the 28th of April 2020. So now we've got that on the top right-hand side, we're actually going to write an informal greeting and a short introductory paragraph. Now this we will start writing from the left-hand side. So leave a line underneath your date, and that's where we're going to write our short greeting and introductory paragraph. So pause the video, write your greeting and your introductory paragraph, and press play when you're ready to see my example. Okay, this is my example. I'm saying, Dear Emmanuel, and then starting on a new line, I'm writing my short introductory paragraph. I hope that you and your family are well. I'm sure you're keeping busy at home. Are you enjoying being in lockdown, or are you starting to go a little crazy? Now, let's take a second to have a look at some of the punctuation I've used. There's not a lot of writing there, and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of punctuation. I've used a comma after I've written Dear Emmanuel and gone on to my new line. I've used a full stop. I've used an apostrophe for contraction in the word I'm. Instead of writing I am, I've written I'm. And I've used a question mark where I asked Emmanuel a question. Now I actually want to hear his answer, which is why I've asked it. Okay. Now that we've got our address, our date, our informal greeting, and our short introductory paragraph, we're going to have a go at writing a paragraph together. So remember, these are the features we need to use. I need to write in first person. There are some words I could use: I, me, we, they, he, she. I'm going to be writing in perfect present tense. I'm going to maintain that informal tone. I've got to remember to include conjunctions, such as but, so, because, although, since, unless. I need to use adverbs to describe the time, so then, next, soon, and prepositions for time as well, before, after, during, and I have included word banks for these on the home learning page as well, so you can borrow some of those words from the word banks. I'm going to be asking the person I'm writing to some questions, and that links perfectly to using a wide range of punctuation such as full stops, commas, question marks, exclamation points, hyphens, apostrophes for possession, things like that. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video now and have a go at writing a paragraph to your friend, your neighbour, someone that you know. Remember, this paragraph needs to make them feel quite positive. You might like to ask them about how they're doing or tell them some happy news, and see if you can use all of these 8 features in your own writing. Okay? You can pause the video now and write your paragraph, or if you'd like to, you can see my example, which is coming up in a second. Okay, here is my example of my paragraph. So I'm maintaining that first person by starting by saying I don't know if you saw in the news the other day, but, that is a conjunction that I've used, but there was an amazing story of a man who started raising money for charity. Before long, now that's a preposition to indicate the time. Before long, he had raised over £29 million. This is a really informal sentence here. I bet you'll never guess how he did it. He walked 100 laps of his garden. Now, you might not think that's very impressive. However, what kind of word is however? However, I haven't told you the best bit. He is 100 years old. Can you believe it? There you go, I've asked a question as well, and that means I'm using a wide range of punctuation. After, that's another preposition for time. After I read the story, I felt incredibly inspired. Now just there I've used the perfect present tense because I've talked about how I felt in the past, but I'm writing in the current moment. So after I read the story, I felt incredibly inspired because it proves that there is always something positive that we can do. Although, that's a cheeky conjunction, I'm not sure if I could raise that amount of money by myself. So in my paragraph here, I've used all those 8 features as best as I can. I've tried to make it really engaging for the person I'm writing to, and I've told them something really positive. It should be really uplifting. So, you should have written your paragraph by now. I'm going to ask you to write 2 paragraphs by yourself which include all the features that we've just discussed. Off you go. Okay, so you should now be ready to write the conclusion of your letter. Now this is the closing paragraph right at the end. So we should have an address, a date, an informal greeting, and an opening paragraph that's quite short. 2 paragraphs that include all the features we've just discussed. And now this is the end of our letter. So in this, I can still use some of those features. I can still use adverbs to describe the time. I can still use conjunctions or questions. And I definitely want to continue using first person, perfect present tense, and using an informal tone. So here's my example of how I would conclude my letter. You might have noticed that I've used 2 apostrophes for possession just there. No, sorry, not for possession, for contraction, to contract those words. So instead of saying I am, I've said I'm. Instead of saying you will, I've said you'll. I'm sure you'll agree that it's going to be great to get back to normal. Soon, that's an adverb that describes the time. Soon, we will be able to get back into school. I'm really looking forward to it. In the meantime, that's a nice phrase that describes the time. In the meantime, stay safe and well. I look forward to hearing from you very soon. That's always a nice line to put at the end of it because it encourages the reader to write back. You can say, I'm looking forward to hearing from you, or I can't wait to receive your letter, or you could even encourage them by saying, write back soon. And then I've written at the end, from Mr. Stringer. That's me signing off my letter, the last bit. So, now you can have a go at writing your own letter. Remember, this is a draft, and tomorrow we're going to go through it and edit it before we can publish it by the end of the week. If there are any questions, you know that you can email us. Have a nice day.